Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're listening to Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We're coming to you from the unceded traditional territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations around Vancouver, BC. I'm your host, Bernadine Fox, and this is the show that dares to change how we think about mental health. Welcome to Rethreading Madness.
When I've never been further, knowing what the hell I'm gonna do. When I can't seem to find my way under or over or through.
You're listening to Rethreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and right now on the phone I have Carl. You know what, Carl? I didn't get your last name. What's your last name?
Dacre.
Dacre? With a D?
Dacre with a D.
I only know you as Carl, the sticker guy, which is kind of bad, but not really, because what you do is make stickers. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I go by the artist name Redrum, and I just I make stickers and I put them up, and I just express myself that way.
And what's the content of your stickers?
It varies from images of myself as a child to feelings that I'm having at the time, statements I want to make, collaboration images with other artists. I just really want to add layers of texture to the city, and stickers are a nice way.
Would you say your stickers are political in any capacity?
I wouldn't have thought so, but mine aren't. Well, that's a really good question, Bernadine, because I try not to be political, but I believe in some things that I guess become political.
Mm-hmm.
So I've made some transgendered rights, gay rights, First Nations rights stickers, and I guess that would be considered political. But I'm not.
Yes.
I'm just trying to say everyone deserves love and respect.
Yeah, it's odd that would be political. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I often tell people that getting up every day as a woman and continuing on with the day, whatever comes, is a political act. I do it every morning because we have to deal with these things on a daily basis, and it's, you're talking about the same thing. How long have you been making stickers?
Oh, let's see, 25 years, but only really hard for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm. It's a new kind of art form that's burgeoning out there that I'm seeing more and more.
Well, it's actually quite old, but it's more burgeoning because of the sticker community online, I believe.
Hmm.
I was making stickers and putting them up for the longest time, and I used to show my stuff on Flickr. I don't even know if that's a website anymore. And that's where I used to post my stickers and wheat pastes. And then it just got to be too difficult carrying around stencils and spray paint and wheat paste buckets and all sorts of this equipment. So then I just finally started making these little quick stickers to throw up, and I just made little homemade stickers, and then I upgraded to a thermal printer, and then after a thermal printer I just got a home printer, and yeah, I haven't turned back. I don't like to get my stickers made from outside sources. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. They do an amazing job. I like the actual act of making my sticker. It's like, it's fun. You have to cut it out. You got to layer it. It's just, the whole process is fun for me.
And where do you put your stickers up?
I try to put them up on places where they're going to have some staying power. So I put them up on the backs of signs, electrical boxes, poles, posts. I don't put them on anyone's property or the sides of stores. I try not to put them on public transit stuff because they just get taken down immediately. You want your sticker to stay up and people to see it, right? You want it to have a little bit of life. Yeah,
absolutely. But we're not here to talk about stickers, although I will make sure people know where to find your stickers by the end of this interview. We're here to talk about the fact that you are somebody who lives with seizures. Can you tell us about what that means in your life, sort of a general week? What does seizures mean to your week?
Seizures mean I am unreliable, and I don't know. You have no idea what's going to happen, and because of that, you just feel very unreliable and very I can't even think of the word right now. I've had quite a few seizures this week, so my word recall is a little off.
Right.
But it leaves you feeling empty, and it feels like you're disappearing.
Can you tell us the mechanics of what actually happens in your brain when you have a seizure?
I'm not really sure, but from what I understand, my seizures take place in the part of my head that where like all your negative emotions and stuff take place. So when I do have a seizure and I come to, I feel like I'm being hit with waves of just negative feelings about myself, just waves and waves of just self-doubt, self-guilt, just anything you could think about yourself, and I have to try and logically get myself out of that space because I'm just like, that's not true. Your brain's just telling you things that aren't real. Don't fall for it. And it's a lot of work. And then there's also the physical part of it too.
I'm going to get to that in a minute, but do you always know that you're having a seizure?
No.
And so if you don't always know you're having a seizure and your experience of having that seizure is negative stuff coming forward to you out of your own brain, that could feel real. That could feel like you need, that's something you need to deal with in order to be a better person. And I'm going to give. Yeah, and so an example I can sort of pull forward is if you have a panic attack is kind of the same thing. It's completely irrational thoughts of, that can spiral you down. And, if you try and actually, engage with the panic attack and make sense out of it and try and figure it out or rationalize it or, work it through or process it, you're intensifying it and
you're engaging it more.
Yes. And so to deal with a panic attack, you literally have to get up and walk away from it. And so, but at least you're having a panic attack. If you don't know you're having a seizure, you're just left with feeling crappy about yourself.
Yeah, and you just come to, and it's only because of the post-seizure symptoms that it's happened.
Right.
I mean, I do have an Apple Watch now that tells me like when my heart rate spikes and it records it and stuff. But before that, I just had to guess.
Wow.
But yeah.
And I think that's probably something people misunderstand about seizures is that they assume because maybe they've seen somebody have a seizure, that it's quite dramatic, right? Or it can be just nothing. You could just zone out, I suppose. But even the really dramatic ones where you drop to the ground and you convulse and all of that stuff, people don't realize that your brain isn't necessarily recording that or registering that. So when you come out of a seizure, you're not recalling, like you said, that you had one.
And in a city like Vancouver, I've had a seizure, laid on the sidewalk, and nothing's happened. People just walk by.
Oh my God.
So, well, I understand. Like, it's not that it's right, but I've seen people just walk by other people just laying on the ground from other problems, mental health, addiction issues. So it's not like anything special. It's terrible for a lot of people.
Yeah, terrible if you have diabetes and you're having a low blood sugar reaction and could have serious harm and die because
there's lots of reasons.
So are your seizures such that you would die from them?
I'm not sure. I hope not. I'm not sure. I've had a lot of head trauma, so we're trying to figure out if that's part of the reason. I've got a lot of pressure in my head. I have headaches all the time, but I'm a multi-symptom medical person. I don't just have epilepsy. I have fibromyalgia and chronic post-traumatic stress syndrome, and I've got a bunch of other issues physically, and it's just it's a painful life, but art and family are what get you through it.
How does the seizures impact on your mental health, other than being bombarded with a lot of negative stuff? But
they leave me feeling inadequate. They leave me feeling like I'm not contributing enough in my partner's life, in my son's life, in my community. It just leaves you feeling really alienated, like you're alone all the time. And because it could happen at any moment, you never know when you're just going to become that.
Does having the seizures and not knowing when it's going to happen tend to exacerbate your PTSD?
I don't know. I'm just at a high level of all the time that I'm not sure. You have to ask my wife. I just, right now, at this point in my life, I thought I was calm for a while, but it's been, like I said, the last couple of weeks have been really seizure stressed out. So, but I'm hoping that I just got some new meds, and I'm hoping that it'll help level things out for a while. That would be nice, because seizures are not fun.
No. I met you at an art talk where you were talking about your stickers. It was at the Outsider and Others gallery here in Vancouver, BC, and one of your pieces of art included all the names of all the medication you take basically on a daily basis. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm actually very lucky to have a family doctor who's been with me. Well, she's not my family doctor, but I have my doctor who has been with me for several years on this journey, and I wouldn't be here without her, but it's a lot of pills I take, and thank goodness, or God, or whoever you want to thank, that we live in Canada, because I would definitely be deeply in debt with all the medications I need. I take a wide variety of pills, and just to try and get through the day, and try and hold off a seizure, keep one at bay, and just to try to keep my mental health at a good place too, because I also suffer from ADHD pretty severely. So if I don't take my ADHD meds, then it's also the day is shot. It's hard to focus. It's like, it's all over the place. Seizures and ADHD don't go together too well.
And I would imagine fibromyalgia as well, because they know that fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue are a central nervous system problem.
That's what I also have, is central nervous desensitivity. That was the name I couldn't remember. That's the other condition I have, which means once my body heals, I'm still feeling the residual pain effects, even though the muscles have healed. I'm still feeling like they're torn.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your central nervous system doesn't know, I call it not knowing how to shut it off. Like, once it's activated, the shut-off valve is broken, and you just end up cycling through it and through it and through it and through it.
It's that hamster wheel, yep. And then once the pain, I think the pain induces the seizures, then the seizures induce pain, and then it's just like a nonstop hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm. And also, if your muscles are contracting, that's a part of pain cycle too.
Yes,
right?
I'm on a lot of muscle pain pills. Sorry to say so many times. It's just there's so much here going on. There's a lot of pills, a lot of pain, but I'm just trying to really focus on staying positive.
Right, and you deal with depression and anxiety as well.
Correct.
Yeah, and do you think that that's caused from the fibro, which is impacting your central nervous system, the ADHD, which those are things that happen along with ADHD, or do you think those are a side effect from the seizure, or
I think it's all
of the above? Yeah.
It's, from a young age, mental health neglected, and then into young teenage years, and into adulthood, and then it's only recently in the last, would you say, 15, 20 years that mental health has become an issue, like it's been acknowledged?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But before that, it was just pretty much, there's something wrong with you, and then that was it, they would say.
And were you having seizures as a child as well, or is this something that came on as an adult?
These only came on as an adult, I believe, but I don't have a very good recollection as my childhood because I lived in foster care. Right. And then I was a ward of the government, and at 18, I just was, that's it.
Right. And as we discussed, you're not always aware that you've had a seizure. It is something that is not necessarily in your cognitive awareness. Even if you just had it, you stand up and go on with your life and not realizing you just had a seizure. So
yes,
unless somebody is recording it, like your wife.
Yeah, and I never noticed there was ones, there's range, like there's times where I just thought I was just sitting there and just staring at something for a while and not realizing that was a seizure. Right. And then I would just kind of snap out of it. And I just like, oh, I thought it was just like, gazing at something. But there's moments where you can't move and like you're like, you feel paralyzed, but your brain wants to move, but your body won't move.
Right.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Like I'm not looking for sympathy, but it's a lot.
No, it is a lot. What you've described is a life that is impacted on so many levels by so many things that have to do with mental health, but also have to do with your physical health. And I think you're doing a tremendous job navigating the whole thing. And your wife as well. Kudos to her.
I would be lost without her.
Mm-hmm. So where can people find your art?
It's right now showing at the Outsiders Gallery. And you could find it on Redrum _AYS_crew on Instagram. And it'll also be seen in the streets of Vancouver.
And so they should look at electric boxes behind signs but not bus stops. And where else? You mentioned another place.
Oh, poles. We like doing poles. My crewmate, Urban Mutant, he and I put up a lot of stickers together. It's good to have a crewmate.
Yes, absolutely. But if they want to buy your art, they should contact Outsiders and others.
And yes, also my wife has made an Etsy website, I believe.
Oh, cool.
It's connected to my Instagram account.
Okay, so they can find that in your Instagram. So if the show is down by the time somebody hears this at the Outsider and Others Gallery in Vancouver, where they could buy your work, they can also go through your Etsy account, which they can find on your Instagram page.
And they can message me on Instagram, and we can always set up any sort of private deals.
Okay, that's great. You're open to people contacting you directly?
Totally.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Carl, the sticker guy, also called Carl Baker. Am I saying that right?
Thank you so much, Bernadine. Yes, you are. I appreciate this.
Oh, you're welcome. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Have a great day.
We'll be right back, folks.
Oh, you hear this? A lot of people call this rock and roll swings. This is done with the, let's see, with the left hand, yeah. And the right hand fits in with something like this here. Here we go now.
Yeah, it's called rock and roll, and you can hear all about it on Rock Talk. Discover the hidden but enchanting side of the music. Friday mornings at 9 o'clock.
Oh, if that isn't enchanting, nothing is. Go ahead, kids. Dance. Go crazy.
You're listening to Rethreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and today I have Yuri Rice with me. He's the artistic director and curator for Outsiders and Others, which is an art gallery here in Vancouver. Welcome, Yuri.
Hi, Bernadine. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you're here. We have been talking to Carl, and he's an artist that has had a show. It has a show now in your gallery and has artwork that can be bought for sale there. I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about what Outsiders and Others is.
Oh, my pleasure, Bernadine. Outsiders and Others is a nonprofit organization that opened in Vancouver at the very beginning of COVID, actually, in June of 21. Was our first exhibition. We opened a window gallery on East Hastings in downtown Vancouver, East Hastings being in the lowest income postal code in our province. And we were there for about 5 years. And then we moved to downtown Vancouver about 6 months ago because our building went up for sale. Our organization specifically focuses on bringing non-traditional artists to the forefront. Non-traditional artists primarily being artists who are self-taught, artists who are with lived experience, artists with disabilities, a variety of things, but primarily artists that most organizations or most galleries aren't working with, or artists who have never shown before. In doing that, we do an exhibition every month. Everything we do is curated. We pay artists exhibition honorariums. We pay them 75% of everything that sells. We do lots of mentoring and things of that nature. And I don't know if I said this, but we do an exhibition every month. So we always have a new exhibition going on. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's who we are.
So it sounds like you are a nonprofit gallery. Yes?
That is correct. We are
Okay.
a nonprofit, and that's why we are able to, pay honorariums and give artists so much of sale prices for artwork,
Mm-hmm.
because we're here to, help support these artists that deserve the support, just like any other practicing artist, as well as to help elevate them and help their work be seen in a more professional manner. And in working with this. With a non-traditional community, one of the biggest challenges, I think, is always getting people to not focus on labels and focus on the work first and
Mm-hmm.
foremost. I mean, it also depends on what we're doing. Right now, so May is Mental Health Awareness Month,
Mm-hmm.
as we all know. And so every May we do something honoring the month. And typically what we do is we do a call for artists. But this year I did something different in that I wanted to select 3 artists that I'd never worked with before who make work that is completely different from each other, that doesn't necessarily focus on mental health,
Right.
that is more focused on aesthetics and so forth. And Carl, or his street or tag name is Redrum, but I'll refer to him as Carl because it's much more personal.
Mm-hmm.
And Carl is that kind of guy. But Carl is a good example of what we do. Is that Carl's never worked with a gallery before. Carl wouldn't necessarily see what he does as art, but he's an incredible artist. And he's, for people who don't know, or you're hearing in the context of this, the interview with Carl, but he's a sticker slapper or a sticker artist. And he makes all of his own stickers. He doesn't have them produced. And he has thousands of designs, and he goes out and he creates these huge mass areas of stickers with a consortium of sticker artists from around the world called AYS, which stands for All You See. But in the exhibition here at the gallery, everything that Carl has in here is only his own work, only his own sticker work. So there's a combination of pieces that are, like panels that are completely covered with stickers that have silk screening on them, and he does embossed seals on them. It's all about pride in a interesting way. That's what I love about Carl's work. It's about here and it's about now. And almost all of the images on the stickers are of himself as a child, as well as just text. And there's a lot of advocacy work too. I mean, from a lived experience point of view, he makes stickers about mental health hotlines and things like that, and have a nice day. And if you need help, call this number. And in the mix of everything that he does. So there's this balance of incredible creativity and advocacy all at the same
Mhm.
time. And that's kind of something that really excites me. One of the pieces in the show here is a silkscreen of his face as a child with a frown, and it says neurodivergent sticker insurgent. And
Mm.
then drawn all around it in these red and pink dots, is a list of the 28 medications that he currently takes.
Right.
And when you're presented with that, like one thing I love about it, it's like in the context of a gallery, you're taking information like that, which is aesthetically beautifully presented. It's important to really say that. The work visually, first and foremost, is the most important thing. But it's so personal, and you're kind of fooled by what it is because of the aesthetics of it. But when you take the time and you're actually reading it and you think for a minute, it's like the vulnerability that this artist is putting forward is unheard of. And it's an opportunity for people to, I think a work like this is an opportunity for people to see how difficult it is for artists of any label, any identity, any experience to expose themselves in their art. It's
Mhm.
not an easy thing, and so many artists do that. There's another artist, Carol Embling, who's in the show, who does the exact same type of work, but it looks nothing like Carl's. But the work is very open and vulnerable, um, and then the other artist, Gabriel, rather, is a mural artist, and his work is not focused that way. It's about large, powerful images that have a lot of presence in space. But all three of these artists identify with lived experience. They collaboratively and with the gallery take on an exhibition like this in a way to show the artwork that they do, but also to stand proud of who they are as
Mhm.
individuals. It's a mission-based show, and that's how I look at it. It's not just about the artwork, even though that's the first thing, but it has a mission. We want to talk about mental health, and we do that through an opening reception. We had a great artist talk 2 weeks ago where all three artists were there, completely open, casual discussions. And that's one of the great things about what you do as well. It's these opportunities for people to speak openly and honestly without hesitation and to not be perfect. And we don't have enough of those opportunities nowadays, particularly, I think, where we are very sensitive to language and how people say things, and we're less forgiving about that. And
Mhm.
for me, I like doing shows like this because it allows people to mess up and
Right.
learn,
Yeah.
and it's really important to do that because that's how we all just kind of, coexist together, is just by learning from each other. And exhibitions like this, I think, are a really great opportunity to do that. And it's a real privilege to do things like this because I see how it affects the artists we work with, as well as the patrons and the community that comes in to see the shows.
I think everybody who comes to my program and listens knows now what lived experience is. And of course, there's all kinds of lived experience. When we talk about it here, it's about lived experience with mental health challenges. Can you, though, define what an outsider is when it comes to art?
So I can't give you a clear definition only because it's something that is endlessly changing right now, I think, and that has so much to do with the change of language in our communities. Um, the mental health connection, I'll say this, to outsider art is it was first really recognized in the late 1870s in Switzerland. Dr. Prishorn, if I'm correct, um, started this doctor who worked in an institution, an asylum, collected artworks by his patients. And nowadays, the Pristhorn collection is revered as one of the world's most significant collections of outsider art. And if you don't know it, it's worth looking up because you will see some of the most incredible artworks you've ever seen by these individuals who were isolated, and to say mistreated is an understatement. And so there's a kind of an origin of the outsider art discussion comes from, the story of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout time, there's a history of it in Europe where it was referred to as art brute for a long time, or as air bracketing art madness. And in the believe it was in the 1970s, somebody in the United States coined the term outsider art, and then it started being used that way in North America, that term, outsider art. I'm going to say that the way that we look at it is I primarily focus on artists that are self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
Self-taught being artists who have not gone to art school in any way, shape, or form. And primarily because the experience that artists have when they go into an art school, I speak for myself as a formally trained artist, once you have one conversation, your perspective has changed, right?
Right.
You just see things differently. You just learned something. You had language. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that it's good or bad, it's just different. And artists who haven't had those experiences, their creativity comes from a different place, and it has a different spontaneity that the majority of formally trained artists aren't able to access or have anymore because they were trained not to be that way.
Right.
And so that's just what interests me. And in the disability discussion, that somehow has fallen into the realm of outsider art. But for me, it's about artists who use their disability, like they have tools, they have gifts in their toolbox that I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And so many artists are able to hone that tool and use it in a way that nobody else can. And that is an amazing thing to see accomplished in creativity. Like there's artists out there that can do things that nobody else can. And if I have the opportunity to bring light to that, I'm going to do it without a question because there's not enough of that kind of stuff that's interesting. I do like to think that we show a lot of artists that you'll just not see anywhere else.
Right.
And but outsider art for us is generally working with artists that are self-taught. There's exceptions to that. When we do mission-based shows, it's more open. One of the artists in our current show is a formally trained artist, but again, it goes back to the work and the artwork, and that's most important.
Can you define
Art,
mission-based art?
sorry, yeah, that's a term that I just kind of use. It's when you do a show that is honoring, Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm
Mm-hmm.
focusing on mental health, so it's kind of a mission show. It's like I have a mission here, and it's
Okay.
show artists with lived experience to have those discussions, not to take away from the art again, but it's a mission. In
Mm-hmm.
December, sometimes we do a International Day of Persons with Disabilities show. I would consider that a mission-based show. But at the same time, Bernadine, I would say the majority of the artists that we work with identify with some label, do you know what I mean, in their life?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more that how we present the work and talk about the work and what we share with the public about the artists becomes less important because the work is the most important thing, like in the discussion of to remove from mental health. I mean, art, when we're talking about art, where you've gone to school, who you've taught with, who you learned with, all of that is nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody cares.
No,
You
they don't.
They just don't. All they care about is what's in front of them and whether or not they connect to it or not, and whether or not they want to make a lifetime commitment of spending money on something that you've made, which is huge. I don't take selling art as a light thing. It's such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's a whole other discussion.
But we could talk about Carl's art that's there. We talked about it with
Yeah.
Carl. But you have some pieces there that I find extraordinary just because of the form that they're in. Can you talk
Completely.
about that?
Completely. So Carl, I mentioned before, he's done some pieces that are, two-dimensional, framed on a wall that are all stickers with silkscreen on them. But at the same time, we have a 12 cabinet locker that is completely covered with thousands of his stickers. Within that cabinet, each one of those cabinet doors, you can open it, and he has something like a large medication bottle where he's made a custom label on the front of it that says it has no refills and take as needed. And you open the bottle and there's 15 stickers inside and a button of his. There
Mm-hmm.
are packages of 100 stickers. There are miniature recycling bins that have, 100 stickers in them and things of that nature. He's made, 12 by 14-inch stickers. He has a faux spray can that you take apart and you open it up and it's stashed with 200 stickers and buttons and stuff. Like it's this interesting combination of merchandise and art. And when you buy a package of his stickers, the whole point is for you to go out and have some fun and put them somewhere with joy in a legal place. And it's just about joy. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and that really exemplifies so much of what Carl represents, like he's a really positive force, I think. Like I've only worked with him for a couple of months now, so he's new to my world, but he's a real positive force. The way he's able to talk about his work as well as he lives it. It's like at the opening reception, it was funny because, and this is not a negative, but Carl left like 15 minutes early because he had to go stickering. And it was just what it was. And it's fine, right? You do what you need to do, it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
He lives it, and that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that so many artists that fall into the outsider art realm do. They live their work. They're
Right.
not, they're not going in the studio and painting. They're just living it.
Right.
And it's a very different experience. And Carl is a really good example of that. But after this show, I mean, we're going to continue to work with Carl for sure. People really like his work. His work is sold. And I think what he's doing is great. So we'll always carry his work for sure, without a
That's
doubt.
cool.
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea or sense of the shows that you have coming up? Not
Yeah,
necessarily in
for
terms of
sure.
dates and stuff, but just to give us an idea of what outsiders and others
Yeah,
do.
completely. So the show that we have, the current show, is actually called Brainchild, was the name of the show. Well, it had a longer title. It was called Brainchild, and an idea or an invention which is considered a particular person's creation. That was the name of this show. That show ends today, unfortunately, but you can still see Carl's work after that, if you want to come in. And we always have access to the other artists' work too. But our next show opens in June 7th, and it's a solo exhibition with an artist named Scotty Collin. Scotty's an artist that we've worked with for a few years now, an artist with lived experience as well. Then after that, in August, Scotty shows a month and a half. We're closed for a few weeks. And then in August, we have a show with an artist named Seema Shaw, who is also a writer. Seema has a solo show called Missing Pieces, and it's all based on what she would consider a life of trauma. And she is exploring the idea that trauma is not something that goes away. It's kind of something that you have with you forever. It's a really interesting show. Another artist in September, Art Arneson, who makes huge objects out of sculptural pieces out of found objects like plane wings and
Oh, I know.
cool
Art.
art.
Yes, I
Yeah,
know
Art
art.
Arneson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
After that, we have a show called The Family Long, and it's a family of artists who live on Vancouver Island. November, we have an amazing show from France. Three self-taught artists working and living in France right now. And France is an important country in the discussion of outsider art because France is the number one concentrated place in the world for recognized outsider artists
Right.
and environments. And then to end the year out in December, we're doing a show called Postcards from the Edge. And basically, it is a fundraiser for the gallery, but anybody who takes a 4x6 postcard, makes a piece of art on it, puts a stamp and puts it in the mail, it's going to go on our wall. And every card will be for sale for $20 and the gallery receives the proceeds.
Wow.
And you
Cool.
can find information about that on our website. There's a call for artists page on it. I'll just say it quickly. It's www.outsidersandothers.com, all spelled out. And
And how
there's
do
all,
people pick up the postcards?
well, you can just make it yourself. I mean, we've been
Oh,
getting,
okay.
I mean, legitimately, in the last 2 weeks, I've received cards from Malaysia, Japan, Europe, and the United States.
Wow.
How it happens, how people find out is amazing, right? But yeah, it's great. And so you just have to put it in the mail, you
Right.
know. And
Okay.
if you're really worried about the card and stuff, like it getting damaged, that's kind of part of the point, you know.
Yeah.
There's a long history of mail art. We're kind of embracing that with this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're right. There is a long history. So really what you're saying is just because somebody has a mental health challenge that they live with does not mean that their art is therapy.
so I think art therapy is a different discussion for
Yeah, it
us.
is.
I mean,
And
it's
that's not what we're discussing here.
at
That's
all.
no.
It's not. I mean, it's not that I have any issue with art therapy, but the thing is that when you're experiencing therapy, that is not something I think for the general public to experience. It's
Right.
yours.
Yeah.
And of course, from an art therapeutic experience, you know, there's great things that happen there, but the magic is really about you, and it is not necessarily, you know, created in a way that's to be shared with everybody because it's more
Mhm.
powerful to the maker than it is to anybody else, you
Yeah.
know. Um,
I do think that there are some people who think that when art is made by anyone who has a disability or a mental health challenge, that it's not really art, it's just therapy, is kind of what I was getting at. And so you are proving that that is, in fact, not correct. So people can get a hold of you through Outsiders and Others. Your
Correct.
website is outsidersandothers.com, all written out.
Yes, it is. And we are on Instagram and we're on Facebook and we are just at Outsiders and Others.
Okay.
Um, we post every day, so you always know what we have going on. On our website, we have calls for artists. You can see all of our past exhibitions and things of that nature. And we're easy to contact.
Right. Well, thank you, Yuri. This has
It's a
been
privilege, Bernadine. Thanks for the time. It's really
fair.
appreciated.
You're welcome. And we'll be right back, folks.
Eoch Tanuyap, Quiget Yuans Quinsna. Hi, everybody. My name is Quiget Yuans. I'm a member of the Squamish Nation and the Yagalanas clan of the Haida Nation. You're listening to Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We live, work, play, and broadcast from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations.
You're listening to Rethreading Madness on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and I am talking with Paul Vincent and Mark Sheehan from the Crisis Center of BC. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Mark, can you tell us a little bit about who you are in relationship to the Crisis Center of BC and what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently the program director of our Community Learning and Engagement Department. The department that I head, we have a youth programs for youth, program for people who are suicide bereaved, and we also have our adult education and training programs. So we focus mostly on supporting those people who have lost someone to suicide. We focus on building up the mental health literacy skills of youth within BC, which Paul's here to talk about. And then we also train organizations, communities, and individuals all across the province in how to do suicide prevention and mental health kind of support work. Yeah.
You have a program called, I believe, the Youth Educator. I'm certainly bastardizing that name, but you have a program that teaches youth about mental health. Can you tell us a little bit about where that program came from?
Yeah, absolutely. So we used to have a full suite of wellness programs for the crisis center that we would provide free to different communities and things like that. We've gotten a lot of interest about programs for youth, and we had a staff at that time who were very much experts in youth mental health. So they created our first program, which is called Self-Care for Mental Health. That's designed for any age youth, and we provide that for free to high schools all over the Lower Mainland. And then recently, I guess the base knowledge of youth in general, when it comes to mental health and when it comes to crisis prevention, has increased over the last couple of years, just with access to information, and it being more of a topic that's less taboo to talk about in some ways. So we have recently added another program called "It's Okay Not to Be Okay," which focuses on kind of older youth in high schools and goes into a little bit more depth on how to support your friends in crisis, and a little bit more kind of real and in depth about the mental health issues that can come up and how to deal with them. We've been around for a number of years now, and have trained thousands and thousands of youth across hundreds of different schools in the Lower Mainland. And yeah, plan to keep it going for as long as it's needed, which I'd imagine will be quite a number of years.
I've noticed that your programs start at grade 6. Is there a reason why you don't do programming for children in elementary school? Well, younger grades anyway, because 6 is still elementary here.
Yeah, there's a couple of other programs in Vancouver that cover that age range. And to be honest, when we were putting this program together, we didn't have the expertise internally for younger youth and elementary school youth. There's a little bit of a difference in how you talk about crisis and mental health when it comes to youth that age, and we don't have that knowledge base within the team, so we focus on the grade 6 and up.
Okay, so it's not because there aren't any mental health issues for children under the age of grade 6, right? So
no, unfortunately, quite an unfortunate trend we are seeing is that mental health crises are coming up earlier and earlier for youth in BC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Paul, welcome. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm originally from Newfoundland, so I'm a Newfie, but I don't have those really wild, weird accents.
How come? Did you leave them behind, or did you just never have them? I'm sorry, I ask weird questions.
But it's a common question. I actually worked very hard removing it because I spent 30 years, most of my life, in hospitality, and I had to learn how to speak slower and a little bit better because people really couldn't understand me. So I actually worked very hard to kind of remove it, but I'm very proud to be a Newfie.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. We should all be proud of where we call home. So tell us about your relationship to the youth education program that the Crisis Center of BC puts on.
Well, how it originally started, I worked for a community, the Jeep community in the Lower Mainland, and for 3 years we got together and ran a program called Jeepapalooza over on the Vancouver Island, where we raised $250,000 for breast cancer. I was the creator of the website and the master of ceremonies with my husband for 3 years. Once I separated myself from that, it was a couple of years, and I decided I needed to do something. I wanted to get back and give something back. And we were sitting out just at a local pub with friends, and I just decided I'm going to take a look. And immediately I found the BC Crisis Center website, and it resonated with me right away that they were looking for volunteers. And there was there were so many different programs involved. And I'm very young at heart. I resonate very young. I mean, I'm 50, almost 55, but mentally I'm like 18. So I've always been young. And my personal experiences, because I had an attempted suicide. And growing up, I know from personal experience that if I had reached and I had the resources when I was young, I would have been a different person. So by the time you reach adulthood, a lot of the damage is already done. So I absolutely said that, I want to be involved in the youth programs because I think it's important to reach youth at an early age.
I agree. So you are one of the workshop educators for, I think, self-care, and it's okay not to be okay?
Correct. I am part of both. I started originally with the self-care workshop, which I'm still obviously very much involved, which I love. And yeah, I was honored that because it was a pilot program this year that I was approached and asked to be one of the new facilitators to get trained and start this new program. And I love both programs. They both have a special place in my heart. They're both great, and they both reach youth at a different level. And you can see the reactions, at both. Like Mark said, the self-care workshop are offered for both from 6 all the way up to high school. So they do range of both. And yeah, that program, I like to look at it. Students learn about what self-care is. They learn about what mental health is, the importance of self-care and finding routines that work for them, that make them feel good, that so they can deal with the day-to-day struggles. While it's okay not to be okay dealing with a higher, I like to say it almost turns students into mini educators. They learned what a crisis is. So when they finish, they walk away with the knowledge of what a crisis is, what happens when your day-to-day dealings and how you deal with stuff is just too much, and you enter a crisis level. See, they know themselves and their friends and their family. They can identify what a crisis is, and now they know they have the resources to reach out. And even if they can't deal with it themselves, of course, they know where to find those resources. And the forms they kind of fill out afterwards, we do a pre-workshop and a post, and the feedback we're getting from that is just crazy. Like, you'll walk in and they'll all say, do you know where to locate assistance, if something happens? And most times it's no, not sure. And at the end of the workshop, it's almost 99% yes, 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 yes. I now know where to go.
And where do people go?
In Canada, we're lucky. We have so many numbers. We have the BC Crisis Center, of course, and there's so many numbers. I will promote it because it's such an amazing site. Foundry BC is just an amazing website. So if anybody listens to this, if they have any issue, they want to check it out. It has there's so many phone numbers, Indigenous, they have the links to the BC Crisis. It's just a world of resources out there. And they even have physical locations now all over, the Lower Mainland, which Mark can contest to. And that's where we always direct them immediately, because there's just such an outreach of so many different things. So there's little videos, or maybe I was being bullied at school, or I'm worried about my weight. It's hard to describe in one interview, but it's just an amazing place to go.
Do you guys find that bullying is a part of what happens to kids who are dealing with mental health challenges? Is bullying, does that become a part of it, as a part of the stigma? Like, you talk about reducing stigma, and it just occurs to me that one of the things that could happen to kids who are dealing with a mental health challenge is that they end up getting bullied because of it. Is that what, are you dealing with that in your workshop at all, or are you finding that in the populations that you work with?
So far, no. Again, we only get 70 minutes with them and we're dealing with that information, and we want to get all this information out to them and do the workshop. So far, I haven't encountered anything yet, but you bring up a good point, because with that stigma, I would not be surprised that bullying is part of it, because that's what prevents people from getting help, is that stigma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And go ahead, Mark.
So again, I can add a little bit to that. So where the funding came for to launch It's Okay Not to Be Okay last year was actually as part of a not necessarily anti-bullying, but like support for those who are being bullied and or are doing the bullying as well. And how we were able to get that funding was because, while we were very great to hear, we're not seeing it too often, but a lot of times I know from talking with Lana is our head of our youth programs at the center, that speaking up in these workshops sometimes can draw attention to yourself. So not a lot of people will always answer honestly, but we set it up that, by learning these skills about how to support yourself or a friend in crisis, if you or that friend are maybe bullying is the reason for that crisis, now you know where to go to get that support before it gets a lot worse. Because that's a lot of what we were seeing with people, was that the initial act of bullying maybe what has a huge impact, but it's the consistent ones that go on for a long time is where the real negative effects kick in. So by setting this up now, that people can understand that they're feeling angry or hurt about that initial act of bullying that happened towards them, they now have somewhere where they can turn to try and get support with that and get advice and help to navigate through it and make sure that doesn't become, a much larger issue for them.
I see that, in your programming and listening to you, that clearly you're talking about things like depression and suicide and those kinds of things. Do you also deal with or explain or bring education around neurodivergent issues? So the autistic kid who's socially not in the same place the rest of his friends are, and how that can negatively impact them. Are you able to do that, or does that go beyond what the crisis center is working on?
I can speak to the community learning and engagement department as a whole in all of our programs, and then maybe Paul, if you want to speak specifically to any of your experience as well on the carrying out the workshop. So we worked in 2024 with the Canucks Autism Network to have our facilitators for our adult side programming and also our managers, including Lana, who helps to put these youth programs together, to get training on how to ensure that these spaces that where we carry out these trainings are safe and accessible for people who are neurodivergent as well. So we don't teach directly about how to support someone who's neurodivergent. We do, in all of our training programs, try to ensure that they're like accessible for people and have a little bit of that knowledge running through them throughout.
Great. And Mark, just going back to a statement that you made, that we're recognizing mental health challenges in children that are younger and younger. Do you think that perhaps that's happening because as a society as a whole, we are somehow managing to finally reduce the stigma around mental health? Because I would imagine that it's the parents. Well, I guess kids going to school might be identified as well, but parents can really step in and prevent their kids from having access to mental health services. Do you think that's part of it, that we're actually reducing the stigma?
A little bit of the $1 million question, I suppose, but I think this is kind of a viewpoint I've always had with this, and I think it's really wonderful in society that right now where there's so many campaigns about, like, if you're feeling any sort of way, to speak about it and come forward and talk to your friends. And I really do see a huge impact that that's having in terms of people reaching out for help and getting more support. But I feel what can sometimes be lacking in those campaigns is the training and support for those friends that you turn to. So like if you have a group of like 16-year-old boys, for an example, have never talked to a mental health because they haven't taken any of our programs, and one of their friends speaks out that, like, hey, I'm dealing with depression, or hey, I'm thinking about suicide right now. It's unfair of us to think that those other 4 people in that group would have the skills to be able to deal with that right now. That's what we're trying to do here with these free workshops in schools, especially the new It's Okay Not to Be Okay, is to give them those very the initial skills of how to deal with that friend when they come forward, because they might have seen the Bell Talk campaign, or they've seen some sort of campaign about coming forward about their mental health, trying to give that support to those people who are then supporting that person. So yeah, I think the stigma for sure is it's really helping to have people come forward, and us and other organizations like Foundry, lots of other places are also making those spaces more easily accessible for people when they need the help as well, because it's not always about just talking about it. You also need to get that help as well.
Well, that's great. And how do people reach the Crisis Center of BC?
A couple of different numbers. You can call the 310-6789, so that's the mental health support line. We also answer the 988, which is a national emergency suicide crisis line. And there's also the 1-800 suicide line, which is BC specific as well. So we answer all 3 of those phone calls. And you can also text 988 as well, which is very useful for some younger, for teens and even some adults as well, who might not necessarily enjoy talking on the phone. And you can also text 988 and begin that conversation, and have the whole thing carried out over text, or when you're comfortable, maybe have them call you then from there, depending on what support you need and how that's going.
Great. Thank you, guys. So that was Paul Vincent and Mark Shaheen from the Crisis Center of BC talking to us about their youth education programs that they put into schools. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back, folks. Rethreading Madness is coming up to its 6th anniversary of being on air. We produce and air each week out of CFRO 100.5 FM on the unceded traditional territory of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations around Vancouver, BC. RTM was one of the first radio programs to focus on mental health issues here in Canada, in an area swamped with statements from therapists rooted in colonial ideas about mental health and trained in the DSM. RTM works to ensure that the voices of those with lived experience have agency and opportunity to define who they are and what is true for them. Who listens to us? Beyond those with lived experience, our audience includes their friends and partners, along with therapists, counselors, and students of psychology. Since 2022, all of our programs have been uploaded to the Mental Health Radio Network and can be downloaded from all podcast platforms. So if this show was of interest to you, you might find the rest of our programs informative as well. You can find them by searching for Rethreading Madness wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Every Sunday night, listen to What's So Funny, the show that probes the minds, the brains, the psyches, and the brains of the people who make the funny. What's So Funny? Sunday night, 11 p.m. to midnight.
And that's our show. My thanks to Carl Dacre, sticker artist, Yuri Rice from Outsiders and Others Gallery here in Vancouver, and Mark Sheehan and Paul Vincent from the Crisis Centre of BC for chatting with us about what they do. And as always, our gratitude goes out to you for joining us today. Stay safe out there. You've just listened to Rethreading Madness, where we dare to change how we think about mental health. We air live on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, every Tuesday at 5 p.m. or online at coopradio.org. If you have questions or feedback about this program, or want to share your story, or have something to say to us, we want to hear from you. You can reach us by email, rethreadingmadness@coopradio.org. This is Bernadine Fox. We'll be back next week. Until then.